My sister was in the bathtub with my fiancé. I locked the door and changed my plan, just not in the way either of them expected. Stay with me as I walk you through what happened, and if my story connects with you, don't forget to show some support by liking, sharing, and subscribing so others can hear it too. Lennox Hale had always believed she finally reached a calm point in her life. At 29, she had a good job she worked hard for, a beautiful wedding only months away, and a family she thought stood behind her. Corbin Slate, her fiancé, was the man everyone praised, polite, steady, the kind who opened doors and remembered birthdays. And then there was her sister Brielle, 2 years younger, reckless but charming, the one Lennox always cleaned up after. She loved them both in different ways and trusted them more than she trusted anyone else. That trust shattered on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Lennox wasn't supposed to be home. Her training trip out of town ended early when a session was canceled. She thought she'd surprise Corbin with dinner, maybe a movie, something simple and sweet. But the moment she stepped inside the house, she noticed something wrong. Laughter, soft, playful, too comfortable. And running water, coming from her master bathroom. A cold feeling spread through her chest as she walked down the hallway. She told herself she was imagining things, that maybe Corbin left the shower running, that Brielle wasn't even supposed to be visiting today. But when she pushed the door open just an inch and looked inside, her world stopped. Corbin and Brielle sat in Lennox's bathtub together, warm water running, bubbles hiding nothing. They were laughing like they had shared 1,000 secrets. Corbin reached out and touched Brielle's arm with the same tenderness he always used with Lennox. Brielle giggled and leaned closer to him. For a moment, Lennox couldn't breathe. She didn't burst in, didn't cry, didn't shout. Instead, something inside her went quiet, too quiet. The room felt far away, like she was watching someone else's life crumble. She slowly pulled the door shut. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She looked at the door handle for a long second, then turned the lock from the outside. A small click, not loud enough to be noticed over their laughter. She didn't want a scene. She didn't want them to see her hurt. She wanted something else, something colder. Walking away from the door, Lennox felt a strange calm settle over her. She had always protected Brielle, always forgiven Corbin, always swallowed her own pain so others could feel comfortable. But not this time. Not after this. In that quiet hallway, with their voices echoing through her home, she made a choice. She wasn't going to confront them. She was going to destroy them, slowly, silently, and with a smile they would believe. Lennox woke up the next morning with a decision already carved into her mind. She would act like nothing had happened. No anger, no coldness, no distance. Just the same warm, steady Lennox Corbin and Brielle were used to. The version of her they believed was too soft to ever see through their lies. So she smiled at Corbin when he walked into the kitchen. She let him kiss her forehead. She even asked about his day, as if she didn't lock him in a bathroom with her sister the night before. The calmness in her voice made Corbin shift uncomfortably, like he sensed something he couldn't name. Brielle tried to act casual too, but she kept glancing at Lennox's face, waiting for some sign of fury that never came. The silence unsettled them more than any screaming ever could. But now that Lennox was paying attention, the lies were everywhere. She noticed Corbin stepping outside whenever his phone rang late at night. She heard Brielle laughing loudly at messages she quickly hid. Brielle, who had always borrowed clothes from Lennox, suddenly owned designer pieces Lennox knew she couldn't afford. Corbin, who claimed he was saving every penny for their wedding, made withdrawals from their shared account with flimsy explanations that didn't match his behavior. All the small things Lennox once brushed aside now glowed like warning signs she had ignored for far too long. Every detail mattered now. While Corbin showered one morning, Lennox quietly opened his drawer and photographed receipts she found tucked behind old papers. At work, she logged into her laptop and discovered synced email drafts Corbin thought he deleted. Messages full of sweet promises and secret plans that had nothing to do with her. She downloaded everything onto a flash drive, labeling each file with the care of someone building a case. She also found voice messages Brielle sent to Corbin, messages filled with affection and jealousy. Lennox saved them too, her expression never changing. She kept her movements small, her reactions gentle. The better she acted, the more off-balance Corbin became. He started watching her like she was the one hiding something. The irony didn't escape her. There was only one person Lennox trusted enough to tell the truth, Madden Costa, her childhood friend. He had been the one constant in her life, the only person who never took advantage of her kindness. When she finally sat across from him in a quiet cafe and told him everything, he didn't interrupt, didn't doubt her, didn't try to soften the truth. He simply listened. And when she finished, he placed his hand over hers and said, "You're not going through this alone." She felt her shoulders loosen for the first time all week. With Madden's support and the evidence she had begun gathering, Lennox realized something important. Her calm wasn't weakness. It was control, and she was finally ready to use it. Lennox's calm investigation took a darker turn the day she opened a packet of mail Corbin had carelessly tossed onto the kitchen counter. It was addressed to her, but the contents were nothing she recognized. Papers detailing a financing plan she had supposedly signed for. The document listed luxury rentals and charges connected to Corbin's so-called business trips. Her name, her signature, her social security number, all used without her knowledge. For a long moment, she just stared at the papers, her heartbeat steady, almost frighteningly quiet. Corbin hadn't just betrayed her emotionally. He had crossed into her financial identity, tying her to debt she never approved. This wasn't an affair anymore. This was theft. The next blow came from her parents during what should have been a simple check-in call. Her mother casually mentioned lending Betrayal money, again. The number was large enough to make Lennox's chest tighten. At first, they thought Betrayal was helping Corbin through a rough patch, but as they talked, the truth unraveled. Betrayal had been spinning stories for years, convincing their parents she needed emergency funds to keep Corbin afloat. Each time, she painted herself as the supportive girlfriend who was just trying to help a man Lennox loved. The lies ran deep, and her parents sounded exhausted, ashamed, and confused. When the call ended, Lennox realized her sister hadn't just betrayed her. She had used their family as a backup bank to support Corbin's mess. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She simply sent a text to Madden, "I need to meet. It's bigger than I thought." Madden arrived with a notebook and a quiet determination that steadied her. They sat in her living room, documents and recordings spread out across the table. Piece by piece, they created a timeline, dates of missing funds, screenshots of messages, withdrawals tied to Corbin's trips, Betrayal's sudden shopping sprees, and every financial hole Lennox could find. Madden wrote it all down with exact precision. Every lie was becoming a weapon. Every missing dollar turned into evidence. The more they uncovered, the more the picture sharpened into something uglier than Lennox imagined. Corbin wasn't just cheating emotionally, he was planning a life funded by her savings. Betrayal wasn't just betraying her as a sister. She had been covering for him, enabling him, and draining their parents at the same time. By the end of the night, they had a complete map of the deception. But Lennox wasn't satisfied with just exposing them. No, that would be too easy. Too quick. She wanted something deeper, an unraveling that matched the slow, careful way they had taken pieces of her life without her noticing. Looking at the timeline, she made her decision. "I'm not going to bring them down together," she said quietly. "I'm going to make them destroy each other." Madden didn't smile, but there was a flicker of respect in his eyes. Because this wasn't just revenge. It was strategy. Lennox knew the fastest way to break a rotten structure was to weaken it from the inside. Corbin and Betrayal had built their little secret world on lies and lust, so she decided to feed that same poison back to them. Quietly, carefully, without leaving her fingerprints anywhere. She began with Betrayal, because Betrayal's insecurity was always close to the surface. It didn't take much to unsettle her. One afternoon, while Betrayal was in the shower, Lennox accidentally left Corbin's phone on the counter with a carefully crafted text preview showing a flirty message from a contact Betrayal didn't recognize. The contact name was simple, S. It stood for nothing, but Betrayal didn't know that. When she came out and saw it, her face changed instantly. She tried to hide it, but the fear in her eyes was obvious. That same night, Lennox casually mentioned she had seen Corbin talking to someone behind the gym last week. She added just enough detail to sound believable, then shrugged it off as if it didn't concern her. Betrayal didn't shrug. She went quiet, and then she started watching Corbin like he was slipping away. From there, the unraveling began fast. Betrayal snooped through Corbin's things. She questioned him over harmless errands. She accused him of hiding someone. Every insecurity she had ever tried to bury came clawing to the surface. Corbin, confused and irritated, grew defensive, which only made Betrayal spiral deeper. Then Lennox shifted her focus. Corbin prided himself on being in control, especially with money. She used that against him. Quietly, she moved a few small receipts into Betrayal's jacket pocket. receipts showing purchases Corbin didn't remember making. She left an open bank statement on the table with highlighted charges Brielle couldn't explain. Even a missing key from his drawer, placed gently inside Brielle's purse, was enough to plant suspicion. Corbin's calm began to crack. He confronted Brielle about money going missing. She snapped back, thinking he was accusing her to hide his mystery woman. Soon, they were arguing in whispers first, then in full-blown shouting matches behind closed doors. Lennox would walk past the hallway, pretending not to hear, even though every raised voice was part of her plan. Each time they seemed to cool down, she added another nudge. A comment dropped at the perfect moment. A subtle glance that made Brielle overthink. A staged phone call Corbin overheard, making him believe Brielle was hiding something. A misplaced item, a half-truth, a suggestion of betrayal, always just enough to sound real. Lennox remained gentle, supportive, and neutral, the one person neither of them suspected. She asked Brielle if she was okay. She asked Corbin if he needed space. She acted like the caring sister, the patient fiancé, the innocent bystander. But in the shadows, she kept tightening the rope around both of their necks. By the end of the week, the two of them could barely stand each other. Their trust cracked, their bond splintering under the pressure she quietly applied. And all the while, Lennox smiled softly, playing the part of the only steady person in the room, while she watched them destroy themselves piece by piece. Lennox knew she needed more than emotional strength to finish what she had started. She needed the law on her side. So while Corbin and Brielle tore each other apart in slow, bitter arguments, Lennox quietly shifted her focus towards something far more serious. Protecting herself legally before delivering the final blow. She began by digging into the documents Corbin forged using her identity. The financing plan wasn't the only thing he had signed without her consent. There were smaller loans connected to his trips, charges tied to companies she'd never heard of, and her name linked to transactions that had nothing to do with her life. The deeper she looked, the clearer it became. Corbin wasn't just reckless. He was committing a crime, and she wasn't going to be dragged down with him. Lennox scheduled a private meeting with an attorney named Sutton Price. She chose him because he had a reputation for being quiet, sharp, and brutally honest, exactly what she needed. She sat across from him in his small office, the blinds half drawn, her folder of documents resting between them. Sutton took his time reading through everything. When he finally lifted his head, there was no confusion on his face, no doubt, only certainty. "This isn't just fraud," he said calmly. "If he continues using your information, he could ruin your credit, drain your accounts, and tie you to debts that might take years to fix. You have enough evidence to press charges, but I suggest you gather a little more. Let him think he's safe. When he's comfortable, that's when he'll make mistakes." Lennox nodded, absorbing every word. She wasn't afraid, just focused. Sutton continued. "And until then, keep everything exactly the way it is. Don't give him any reason to suspect you know." That advice became her new script. She walked out of the office feeling lighter, more in control than she had in weeks. Sutton was right. This wasn't the time to confront Corbin or reveal what she knew. It was time to let the play continue while she collected the final pieces. At home, she slipped back into her quiet performance. She asked Corbin about cake tastings and seating charts. She let him believe the engagement was solid. She even complimented him on small things, pretending nothing had changed. Her calmness was sharp enough to make him uneasy, but not enough to alarm him. Brielle, however, noticed. She watched Lennox with growing suspicion, making little snide remarks whenever they were in the same room. Comments like, "You seem awfully relaxed for someone planning a wedding," or "Corbin must really trust you, more than most would." Her voice always had a bitter edge, as if she sensed something was slipping beyond her control. But Lennox didn't bite. She smiled, nodded, and let Brielle's insecurity twist itself tighter. Because the truth was simple. Her plan was already in motion. The engagement was breaking, quietly, silently, long before anyone saw the cracks. Lennox didn't have to raise her voice or expose a single secret to make Corbin and Brielle unravel. She only had to shift her energy. A little distance here, a slightly colder smile there, and suddenly both of them were clinging to her as if she were the only thing keeping their world steady. She used that fear carefully, guiding it like someone tightening strings on a puppet. She began by creating small moments where she seemed distracted, thoughtful, or slightly unavailable. Corbin noticed first. Whenever she paused before answering him or didn't react immediately to his stories, he leaned in closer, almost desperate to keep her attention. Brielle picked up on it next, watching every interaction with sharp, jealous eyes. Soon, they were quietly competing, trying to outdo each other in ways that made them both look ridiculous. To add pressure, Lennox hosted a casual family dinner. She knew the room would expose them more than any confession ever could. From the moment Brielle walked in, her nerves were obvious. She hovered near Corbin, touching his arm too often, laughing too loudly. Corbin stiffened whenever she did, subtly pulling away as if he didn't want Lennox to notice the closeness. They wouldn't make eye contact with each other, yet neither could stop watching the other's every move. Lennox barely had to say a word. The tension radiating between them was enough to sour the whole evening. Corbin started drinking more as the days went on. Not enough to be alarming to others, but enough that Lennox saw the cracks forming. Every glass loosened his control, made him more sensitive to Brielle's questions, more irritable when she pressed too hard. Their secret was no longer exciting. It was suffocating him. He snapped at Brielle in small ways, and she responded with clinging apologies, afraid of losing whatever grip she thought she had on him. Brielle, meanwhile, became unpredictable. One moment she was overly affectionate with Corbin, and the next she was accusing him of hiding things. Her calls came too often, her texts too long, her questions too sharp. She hovered around Lennox as well, asking if they were okay, trying to gauge whether Lennox suspected anything. Her voice shook sometimes, her smiles forced. She was unraveling thread by thread. Behind the scenes, Lennox and Madden continued their quiet work. Madden found financial gaps Corbin couldn't plug anymore. They directed subtle pressure toward the accounts Corbin relied on, causing transactions to bounce, balances to dip into the negative, and automatic payments to fail. Each financial snag rattled Corbin's already shaky composure. He blamed Brielle first, then blamed himself, and sometimes, in his drunken irritation, he blamed the world. Lennox never stepped in to calm the fights. She simply observed, offering calm nods and sympathetic glances that only made them cling to her harder. They didn't know she was the one tightening every rope around them. They were too busy falling apart, exactly how she needed them to. Lennox had been careful for weeks, watching Corbin and Brielle fall apart under the weight of their own lies. But she knew the real damage, the kind that couldn't be argued away, would come from proof. And she finally got it one late evening when a notification popped up on her banking app. It was an alert she had set up quietly, something Corbin didn't know about. The message showed an attempted transfer request, one that matched the exact amount in her savings account. Her chest tightened, not with fear but with a cold sense of clarity. Corbin had planned to empty her entire savings just days before the wedding. He must have assumed she'd be too distracted with wedding preparations to notice. He picked a date that fell between vendor payments, a moment when she would expect money to be moving around anyway. He thought he was clever. He thought she was blind. But the transfer failed because Lennox had already added extra security steps weeks earlier. The next punch came from Brielle. Lennox found a printed checklist in Brielle's bag while she was visiting their parents' house. It wasn't labeled, but the handwriting was unmistakably Brielle's, neat, loopy letters. The list was titled only with a heart, like she couldn't bring herself to admit the truth even on paper. Underneath it were steps outlining her plan to move into Lennox's house the moment the wedding happened. Guest room becomes mine. Move clothes in while Lennox is on honeymoon. Talk to Corbin about switching utilities. The sheer confidence, the entitlement of it, made Lennox pause. Brielle wasn't just betraying her. She was building a life out of Lennox's home, money, and stability, acting as if she were entitled to everything Lennox had worked for. The betrayal was deep, but now it was documented. That night, Lennox decided to secure the last piece she needed, Corbin's own words. She waited until he was relaxed, sitting on the couch with a drink in his hand, the TV playing softly in the background. Her phone rested on the coffee table, recording silently behind a book. She brought up their future in a gentle tone, pretending she was thinking about finances and stability after marriage. Corbin took the bait easily. He leaned back, smirking with a confidence that made her stomach twist. "You know, Lennox," he said, swirling his drink, "after everything I've put up with, I deserve everything you have. Your savings, your house, all of it. I'm the one who made your life look good." She nodded like she agreed, though her insides turned cold. That sentence, "I deserve everything you have," was the final nail. The next morning, she spread everything across her dining table. Bank statements, forged documents, screenshots of Brielle's checklists, audio recordings, and the file from their conversation. She organized it all with the precision of someone preparing a legal ambush. Labels, dates, summaries, every betrayal laid out cleanly. By the time she closed the folder, it felt like holding the weight of the entire truth. It was ready, and soon they would see just how prepared she truly was. Lennox chose a Saturday evening for the moment everything would come undone. She sent out warm, polite messages to both families, inviting them to a wedding update dinner. There was nothing unusual about it, no hint of the storm waiting behind her calm smile. Corbin assumed it was her way of smoothing things over. Brielle seemed uneasy but agreed, maybe hoping the event would bring her some reassurance. The house was spotless, candles lit, soft music playing in the background. Lennox greeted everyone with steady warmth, guiding them to their seats as if nothing in the world was wrong. Corbin sat beside her, stiff and restless. Brielle hovered on the other side of the room, avoiding eye contact. Their parents sensed something off, but Lennox's serene expression kept them silent. When everyone settled, Lennox stood up slowly, holding the neatly organized folder she had prepared. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, as she said, "I have a few important updates about the wedding. But before we talk about plans, there are things you all need to know." She placed a small speaker on the table. The first recording played, Corbin's voice unmistakably clear, admitting he deserved everything she had. A ripple of confusion ran across the room. Corbin's mother gasped. Lennox didn't look at him. She simply played the next clip. Messages between Corbin and Brielle, laughing about plans, making comments that were far too intimate to be confused with anything else. Brielle jumped to her feet, shaking her head. "That's taken out of context. You're twisting things, Lennox." Without a word, Lennox slid printed photos across the table, images with dates and timestamps. Brielle entering Lennox's house when she wasn't home. Corbin's car parked behind hotels on nights he claimed to be away for work. Screenshots of emails Brielle thought she deleted. Every denial Brielle tried to utter died halfway out of her mouth. Then came the financial documents. Lennox projected them on the TV screen. Statements showing forged signatures, attempted transfers, loans Corbin had taken using her identity. Their parents stared in disbelief as the numbers stacked up, betrayal turning into something undeniable. That's when Corbin snapped. He rounded on Brielle, raising his voice, accusing her of being the reason everything went wrong. "You pushed me into this. You told me we had it under control. Now look what you did." Brielle shrieked back, shoving him. "Don't blame me. You were the one who tried to steal her money. You're the one who promised me we'd fix everything after the wedding." The room erupted into chaos, both families shouting, trying to make sense of what they were hearing. Corbin's father demanded answers. Lennox's mother sat frozen, face pale. It was a train wreck, loud and messy, the kind of scene people remembered for years. And through it all, Lennox didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She didn't even look angry. She sat still, hands folded in her lap, her expression steady and detached, like someone watching a play she had already memorized. Everything she needed to say had already been said. Everything they needed to see was already exposed. There was nothing left for her to do but let them destroy each other in front of everyone. The shouting around the table was still echoing when Lennox finally rose from her seat. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her calmness cut through the chaos better than any scream could. Everyone turned toward her, as if the room itself hinged on her next breath. "I'm not here for explanations," she said quietly. "I ended the engagement 2 weeks ago, and I've already filed charges." Corbin froze mid-sentence. His face drained of color, anger twisting into fear. "You what? You filed, Lennox, you can't do that. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," she replied, her tone steady. "You committed fraud using my name. You tried to take my savings. And you lied every day you looked at me." His voice broke into pleading, but she didn't give him even a glance. Sutton Price stepped into the room from the hallway. He had been waiting at her request, the final safeguard she needed. The moment Corbin saw the attorney holding a slim case file, he understood this wasn't a threat. It was already in motion. Sutton addressed the families, his voice crisp and factual. "The evidence Ms. Hale provided is extensive. The charges will move forward. Any communication from Mr. Slate should go through me." Corbin tried to argue, to twist the story, but Sutton shut him down with the cold efficiency of someone who had dealt with countless men like him. Then Lennox turned to her parents. Her voice didn't waver. "I'm also done with Brielle. She made her choices, and she can live with them. I won't let her back into my life." Brielle's expression cracked. She looked from her parents to Lennox, desperate for someone to save her. But her parents' faces were unreadable, hurt, disappointed, stunned. When she reached for her mother's arm, her mother pulled back slowly, as if touching her would burn. Brielle had drained them for years, lied to them, betrayed their trust. Now the truth was bare, and there was no sympathy left to give. "Please," Brielle whispered, voice shaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." But no one stepped forward. No one defended her. By the time the families left that night, Brielle's world had collapsed. Corbin faced legal consequences, his job already at risk, the financial fraud too serious to ignore. Brielle was left alone, no fiancé, no home, no family bank account to fall back on. The life she tried to build out of Lennox's sacrifices crumbled to dust. Meanwhile, Lennox walked upstairs, packed the last of her belongings into a suitcase, and closed the door behind her without looking back. 2 days later, Madden arrived with boxes, tape, and a quiet smile. He helped her move into a bright, simple apartment overlooking a park. No memories of betrayal, no shadows of what happened, just a fresh start filled with clean air and open space. As they set her things down, Lennox took a slow breath. For the first time in months, it didn't feel heavy. She wasn't walking away from the fire. She was stepping into her new life, while the people who broke her finally burned in the ruins they created. In the weeks after everything collapsed, Lennox found herself living in a quiet she hadn't felt in years. No secrets being whispered behind her back, no tension humming through the walls, no pretending everything was fine. Her new apartment felt small but peaceful, exactly the kind of space she needed to rebuild herself. She started therapy first, something she once thought she was too strong to need. But sitting in that calm room, talking through the betrayal, the financial violation, and the emotional wounds, she felt layers of pressure loosening. She learned where her boundaries had slipped, where her kindness had been exploited, and how to reclaim parts of herself she didn't even know she had lost. With every session, she grew steadier, clearer, and more confident. She picked up old hobbies again, painting in the evenings, jogging at sunrise, cooking meals just for herself without worrying about someone else's preferences. She began to recognize her own life again, piece by piece, as if she was stepping out of a fog she never noticed settling around her. As she grew stronger, she realized the truth she hadn't been ready to admit before. Revenge wasn't what healed her. Closure did. Knowing she took action, protected herself, and chose truth over comfort, that was what made her whole again. She no longer cared about watching Corbin or Brielle fall. Their destruction wasn't her victory. Her victory was reclaiming her own life. Still, news traveled. Corbin's career collapsed quickly once the charges became public. His employer placed him on leave, and soon after, he lost the job entirely. The fraud investigation made him practically unemployable. Friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be tied to someone facing criminal charges. Everything he once bragged about, his charm, his reputation, his future, fell apart faster than Lennox ever imagined. Brielle fared no better. With her parents refusing to bail her out financially or emotionally, she spiraled into desperation. Eventually, she moved out of state, chasing something, stability, hiding, maybe both. No one knew exactly where she went, and no one seemed eager to find out. The girl who had always lived off others finally had to face life without a safety net. Through it all, Madden stayed close, not hovering, not pushing, just steady. He helped her furnish her apartment, invited her to simple outings, and checked in on her when she needed it most. He didn't try to replace anything she lost. He simply gave her space to become herself again. Their bond deepened in a quiet, natural way. Not romantic yet, but warm enough that Lennox knew she wasn't alone. One evening, as she stood on her balcony watching the sky fade into soft pink, she finally understood the full arc of her story. She didn't walk away because she was broken. She walked away because she chose herself. And as the cool air settled around her, Lennox whispered the truth she had earned the right to claim. "I didn't just walk away. I walked forward, finally free from the people who never deserved me." Do you feel Lennox made the right choice by stepping out of that toxic mess? Or do you think she should have tried to fix things one last time? Share your thoughts below. I'm honestly curious what you think. And if stories like this keep you hooked, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you never miss another one.